The Case of the Derelict Daughter. 7. The last chapter. Skanks. We rode in trucks, though I did feel like I was in some sort of hillbilly posse. But there was just too much about this case I didn't know, and too much of it that was personal to me. No matter who or what my family were, I'm just a detective, an asshole private dick who just wants to make his bills and maybe someday find a good dame who'll put up with his shit. Maybe someday. One that won't key my car. I rode with Sam and Dragomir, my brother of all things, and Kitty Renard. Now that dame was the strangest part of this whole situation. And I was beginning to understand that she just wasn't quite human. What the fuck? Yesterday, the world made sense. I was dealing with the usual coppers, spooks, gangbangers, and, well, potheads. But now? Now I had to deal with witches, wizards, vampires, and demons. What the hell else was I supposed to see that shouldn't exist? Yeah, belief was an issue for me. I was raised in a rational, albeit very shitty reality. And now, well, now, all that was up in the air. What did I actually know? I knew that I was being manipulated. That was a sure thing. Either by the people I joined, or by the people claiming to be my parents. But probably every last fucking one of them. When we went off-road once we got close to the area of what was supposed to be Wolf Pass. My understanding was that Wolf Pass used to be a town. The first town one came to when traveling to Texas back in the early 1800s. Though back then, it had been known as Salem, Texas. These witches, they aren't cute and cuddly women with power. They aren't Sabrina or Hermione Granger. They traffic in demons. They consort with creatures born in the fires of hell. And they take their power from such dalliances. Monsters. Plain and simple, Dragomir told both of us. So, I said, like Disney executives, right? Yes, very evil. And the simile has out, he nodded. I went through what I knew, and it wasn't much. There were only two possibilities. There were actually girls there who had been taken and indoctrinated into a cult. You know, kind of like those people who watch CNN. Or these skanks were witches. And as much as I didn't want to believe any of this nonsense, I saw things I couldn't explain. And I don't think Einstein or Elon Musk could explain them either. We turned onto a small rock road that led to a locked gate. And above that gate were the old rusted words, Salem, Texas. Sam barreled through that gate in his old Bronco as if it weren't even there. Hold on, he howled and laughed like a maniac. We bounced and rolled as he sped. Way too fucking fast, if you ask me. And it took us only moments to find the clearing in front of what looked like, I kid you not, an old western saloon in the middle of a field. It was the only building. Well, shit, I muttered. What? Sam asked. This is going to actually be witches. Jesus. Maybe I'm just in a rubber room somewhere and my next shot of antipsychotics is coming. Well, whatever it is, then I'm in there with you, Sam told me. How do you want to do this? This one would say, Kitty began, a gleam in her eye, that the witch mother of my Jackson Kane set a trap for him. Who better to spring the trap? She's a witch, Dragomir snorted. I should go first. I have protections. So does my Jackson Kane, Kitty replied. He just does not know it. I held up my hand. What the hell are you talking about, doll? I asked. She gave me a long, suffering look through the rearview mirror. This one knows you were born during magical conflicts in both time and space. You think you gained nothing from that during ritual? Wait, what? Sam asked. Both Dragomir, Caliban, and Jason King were born for sacrifice, conceived during a dark sex ritual, and bound to hell as sacrifice. This one believes Jason King will be insulated from magic assault, she explained. I turned in the seat to I just couldn't get used to calling my brother fucking Russian. What is she talking about? Dragomir gave Kitty a look, and that dame smiled as broadly as she could, showing every pointed and extended canine. Well, canines of a canine, I guess. Dog or fox, actually. But she still had the eyes of a cat, all yellow and glowy and shit. Slitted, almost. Well, I asked. Viva her key. Key to more power, to everlasting life. Sacrifice an innocent to the correct demon and, oh God, or whatever you call, and get the power commensurate with that sacrifice. Well, I said, being an orphan under those circumstances doesn't seem as bad as I thought it was. Once we stopped, I just got out of the truck. Listen, I want you all to stay here unless you notice my screaming or something, I told them. Then get your asses in there and save mine. Hey, are you sure about this, brother? Sam asked. Moretti and the old sheriff approached. Undoubtedly, they know we are here, Dragomir told everyone as he got out. He looked at me. We will surround the place and come in as soon as you give us a signal. I just nodded, and I walked in. The bar or saloon or whatever the fuck it was supposed to be. And as I entered the dark room, lit only by gas lamps of a bygone age, she waited there for me, at the bar, sitting on a stool, sipping a goblet of something. The mirror shone her in her lovely glory, dressed to the T and to the nines. Hey, that blood? I asked. Mom. She laughed, her silvery peal of laughter echoing off the walls and reverberating. So, did your brother clue you in? No, Kane did, actually. And then he disappeared in a puff of smoke after I put lead in his forehead. I paused. Look, I didn't mean for that to rhyme. So, you tried to commit patricide, and here you are to commit matricide too, Jackson, she asked, taking another sip of her goblet. Tick, tick, tick. My poor child. I guess, given who my father seems to be, that sort of thing runs in the family. I began and leaned up against a low table, not bothering to pull out a chair and cross my arms. Probably on both sides, giving who and what you seem to, what's the word? Consort with? She tittered and then set her goblet down and stood, her walk seductive. Oh, I've done things you couldn't even imagine. Things that I should burn for 1,000 times 1,000 realities over. And just who do you think I consort with, child? Demons, old gods, what the hell ever. Can't remember the exact words that my brother told me, but look, I don't like that I'm the sacrificial child for the most well-known murderer in history and a skank who sleeps with demons. I don't really believe it, to be honest, and I'm actually here for the girls. I paused so she could understand just how serious I was, and looked her straight in the eye. I will take them and go, and if you don't give them to me, there will be trouble. She laughed again, this time no titter, but a full belly laugh. Demons? You think I consult with demons? She doubled over. Son, she said, I consult with the fallen. No petty demon, but a lord of the host of hell itself. A fallen angel. Lucifer himself has eyed me. The girls, I stood, growling, dropping my hands, getting ready to fight. Come out, sisters, she said, and then clapped her hands. All of which are now bound to other hosts of hell. Perhaps not fallen, but it should be enough to deal with you, my son. You have no skill with magic, no potential either, and if you were so disposed, which you are not, you've been kept in the dark. Why then? I asked her. Why would Alice of the Green, who is over 700 years old, want to catch me in a trap? Poor old Jackson Kane, who has no power, no skill, is just a goddamn private dick, barely making enough to live. She looked confused and then shook her head sadly. Oh, no, no. You do not understand. You were born to be a sacrifice, conceived, in fact, to do such a thing. A sacrifice to my Lord, and you shall be, as will your brother eventually. Both are nothing but men, cold, despicable, toxic men. It was always to end up this way, my son, Jackson. This is why you were conceived. She waved a hand. I felt nothing, but not a blessed thing. Alice tilted her head in a way that didn't even seem human, almost robotic, as if not understanding, and then she clenched her jaws and waved both hands at me. Again, nothing, and I shook my head, pulling out my revolver. Unfortunately, that's when the girls showed up. There were 12 in total, all young ladies that looked to be no older than 25. Each of them, hands and eyes glowing with red, dark-tinged power. I never noticed that in anyone before. It seems, my mother said, you do not have anything exterior, but you do have protections. Ah, is your brother out there? Did he cast a shield spell? You think I'd let that Russian asshole do something unnatural to me? Fire, black, lancing, living fire enveloped where I stood. But again, I felt nothing. Nothing at all. The wood on the floor and the tables all took fire and smoked. But I was fine. It was weird. But everything had been since this dame walked into my office, pretending to be something she wasn't. Is that supposed to impress me? I snorted and then cocked the hammer back in a very loud and deliberate way. Release whatever hold you have on these girls, or I put a bullet into your head, just like dear old Dad. Only I doubt you can regenerate, a millions of years old vampire? 6,000, she said, as if she'd had that conversation before. Whatever, I'm a gumshoe, not a science nerd. She smiled. Well, ladies, what do you say? Do any of you wish to go home? None of them even moved. Maybe they'll change their minds once I just pulled the trigger. Didn't even bother finishing. What happened next was crazy. Plain crazy. The bullet literally shattered before it touched her. Though the projectile was so fast I couldn't see it disintegrate against what I assumed was the shield thing she'd been talking about. I figured that she'd at least be able to do something about conventional firearms, since she was supposed to be a 700-year-old witch. but I never intended the thing to hit her. That boom, that unique sound an old 1876 Colt 45 makes, that was a signal. I spun, knowing that I was covered from agile attacks for some reason, but not trusting that newfound ability. For all I knew, that Russian bastard did put a spell on me. As I turned, I saw the rest of my cohorts rush into the room. Bolts of lightning, balls of fire, and all manner of inky spells wafted around the room by the demon-impregnated girls. Yeah, and they were definitely pregnant. As if all of them were about 9 months pregnant. They'd all been telling me about these skanks were true. Then the bun in the old ovens weren't even human. And that wasn't good. And then something hit me. Hit me in the chest. Just to the right of my heart. And then another something slammed my shoulder. And then my bicep. The one holding my 45. My right arm. They were long and straight pieces of wood, like chair legs. The world grew dim as pain washed over me, and I realized she'd used her magic, maybe not directly against me, but to throw a solid object at enough speed to puncture. I see, I gasped out as I dropped to my knees. You figured that out. She strode over to me, violence and magic, the very air sparking and tingling. 12 other women were throwing power about as if it were confetti, and Dragomir seemed to be smacking every single thing aside. Sam, the old sheriff, were back to back, shooting at women, doing absolutely nothing but putting holes in the old wood. It was the oddest thing, but to watch an obviously 9-month-long woman run up walls and swing from chandeliers like spider monkeys was novel. Let me tell you, it was strange. I hadn't yet seen Kitty. Oh, my poor boy, Alice said as she swayed up to me. Why was she being so sexual? I'm supposed to be her kid, after all. And she ignored everything else going on in the room. It seems you have some sort of charm or some other thing protecting you from my magic. But see, I do not have to use direct magic on you. She knelt down so that her face was very close to mine. Jackson Octavian Kane, she whispered, know that in your death you will give your mum eternal and everlasting power. The blood of a Cain sacrificed to Lucifer, Lord of the morning star himself. I looked away from her eyes, the madness shining in them, and looked up at the wicked curved dagger she held high, ready to plunge down into me, giving me to a fallen angel, to the king of hell himself, or so she thought. A blade of white, looking like a traditional katana, though made of something looking like a cross between steel and bone, shot out of the chest of Alice of the Green, my mother, and I saw the surprise and horror flash through her eyes. Kitty Renard, stood behind Alice, her sword buried to the hilt, through the back of the witch. This one will not let you take my Jackson. I watched the light slowly fade from my mother's eyes. And you know what? Orphans are so lost and alone, so forgotten and discarded, that even the evil house spawn of a mother was better than not having one at all. My son, she said, reaching her hand out towards my face. I do wish now things had been different, but things had been led me down my path. But I will pay for it, just like any other. Now, I just wish. She coughed and then smiled, bloody drool falling from her beautiful little mouth. and that light faded from her eyes. I never got to know what she wished for. Perhaps it was that we had been an actual family. Perhaps. I like to think so. My mother, the person who gave me birth, died right there in front of me. The woman who should have protected and guided me, and my brother, I suppose, should have nurtured and taught us, was dead and cold upon the cold floor, and her soul undoubtedly claimed by the king of hell, or whatever. Before the darkness and blood loss took me, I noted that all of the women were down, either dead or unconscious. I looked up, tears falling down my face, at Kitty, who stood, gleaming white blade in her hand, the expression on her face not one I could ever recall seeing. Not for me. Not ever for me. It was an expression of love. Pure, true, deep love. And that love carried me into the darkness, into peace. I woke in bed. The bed was comfortable, so it wasn't mine. Maybe all the crazy weird shit was a dream or delusion after all. And then I saw my brother sitting and reading next to the bed. Oh, fuck, I groaned. I see, you are the same old obnoxious self, Dragomir said, setting down his book. Who the hell is Kitty Renard? I asked, thinking of her eyes and the emotions I saw there as I let the darkness take me. That, my brother, is not for me to say. But you are tired. To her, in a way I cannot fathom. She is an ally, but the she are never really to be trusted. She? I asked, all kinds of confused. The fae, the fairies, the elves. Oh, dear God, I murmured. You'd be dead if not for her, he said. The girls, some are dead, but they were old. Some almost as old as Alice. However, the youngest of them, the senator's daughter and the local girls, have all been treated and no longer appear to be, he grimaced, in a family way. I lay back and closed my eyes. She's killed them, I asked. Alice? Oh, yes, he told me gently. She was bad, right? Really bad? I almost begged him. He leaned over and placed a gentle hand on my unwounded arm. Jackson, you did. And she was. And I am in awe because I could never have let that happen. Not consciously. Not having grown up without a mother. Well, she did try to kill me first, I told him, hoping it would make us feel better. It didn't. My brother, my friend, Dragomir said, and there was real sympathy in his voice. Empathy, because I suppose he was going through the same things I was. No matter what life is taken, it is always a tragic thing. Taking the potential of a person out of this world. Someone who could have changed, could have done something great eventually. Someone who could have been necessary to the whole point of it all. Taking that, it is always painful, always hard, and always a burden, as it should be. That is why murder is the worst thing one can do. Tell that to Cain, I said. Well, I guess if God asks you directly and you lie, he shrugged. Well, that does give us an advantage if you think about it, I told him. Which is? Well, someone who lies to God, and an omniscient fucking being, has to be a fucking retard or something, I said. Dragomir began to laugh, and so did I, though it hurt like a son of a bitch. The end of this case. Stay tuned. There are plans for more. And maybe we'll find out a little bit more as we go along. I really do appreciate you guys listening to this series. And if this is your first time, please consider subscribing. It helps me tremendously to keep going, keep producing, keep working my ass off. And share this. Remember, your life is your story. Make it a great one. Good night and God bless.